Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Anna-Laura van der Lint. I'm responsible for the marketing at ZyLAB. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, eDiscovery Microsoft Office 365. Your presenter will be Jeffrey Wolff. He's the eDiscovery Director with ZyLAB, and he will run you through a typical Office 365 use scenario. He will show you why and how you should couple your Microsoft environment to a best-of-breed eDiscovery solution, and he will give you a practical demo at the end. Jeffrey, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Anna-Laura. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar today. We're going to do something a little different. We'll try out some live functionality of our software. If you're interested, what I'd like you to do is send an email to the address that you can see on screen right now. That is one@zylab365.onmicrosoft.com. And those messages will be processed automatically into our ZyLAB platform. And maybe we'll show off a couple of those messages and search for them during the demonstration at the end of the presentation. Please make sure you don't send anything that is private, as this will be publicly accessible information. We're going to begin our discussion today talking a little bit about Office 365 and its adoption rate and where it plays in the eDiscovery space. Office 365, as you can see by the quote from Gartner research on screen right now, is well beating Google Apps in enterprise solutions. And in fact, adoption of Microsoft Office 365 has only snowballed over the last couple of years. Most, if not all, of the customers that we speak to on a regular basis as an eDiscovery vendor have told us that they've already either A, made the conversion to Office 365 already, they're B, currently in the process of converting to Office 365, or already C, looking at it as a future option for their enterprise. So the adoption rate has been quite good, and we, as a company, we are strategically positioned to make sure that our customers who do transition to O365 are as successful as they are with on-premise Exchange and SharePoint. Gartner also did a study identifying Microsoft's gaps in eDiscovery, and while they feel that they own the content, obviously they are the repository of choice for the majority of eDiscoverable content, which is typically email messages. They are not complete in its solution for eDiscovery purposes. And mainly what they lack are around the realms of deep eDiscovery processing as it relates to indexing all types of files and a review environment. So while you can certainly look at email messages in Microsoft Outlook as a client application, it's not exactly an ideal review platform for users. That being said, when we talk to our users or our potential customers, there are a number of use cases that typically bubble up to the surface. And so I've decided to cover a few of those for you, just so you can get a flavor from it. Everybody comes to this space with a different notion about what they're going to do with their eDiscovery solution. First and foremost, we as a vendor make sure that we address the federal rules of civil procedure. That's where eDiscovery rules come down from in the US, and as a result, everything else kind of stems from that. First and foremost, litigation and arbitration. Most eDiscovery users typically tend to be involved in either civil or criminal litigation, and that's where the eDiscovery request or the request to collect electronically stored information comes from. ZyLAB was uniquely positioned because we transitioned more, or I should say we focused more on the corporate space, as opposed to some of our competitors who focus much more on the law firm or legal space. So we come from a market of understanding corporations, enterprises, organizations, municipalities, about their needs around collecting and searching electronically stored information. Regulatory requests, of course, a lot of the financially regulated or government regulated industries have reporting needs to the government, to the Department of Justice, to the Security Exchange Commission, who have very specific formats for producing ESI. They have what they call production specs that are specific to them, and whenever a corporation has to respond to a regulatory request, they need to provide their ESI in a format compatible with the appropriate agency that they're reporting to. The next one, Public Records Request and Freedom of Information Act request. This one is in the last couple of years has really started to climb in its need. As more and more municipalities, both state, city, local agencies are getting requests from the public for information, most of them are not set up to handle the volume of requests they're getting. So, a county with 1 million people in it that has 1 or 2 FOIA officers is simply not capable of collecting the data they need, indexing that data, searching it, redacting it, identifying what can be exempted under their state law, and then producing that to the requester in the time frame that is necessary. Most states actually have pretty severe penalties for not responding to a public records request in a set amount of time. So as a result, they're looking for more and more solutions that can help them automate the request, but more importantly, make sure that they're not missing anything. So being efficient with their time and finding all of the relevant data. They have to be able to review typically email messages that are sent as a result. And there's no good way right now within the organization, aside from doing it within Exchange or Office 365, to review that content. And ZyLAB has a solution that really helps. And in fact, the same platform that can be utilized by that corporation for litigation can also be used internally for investigations for content that never gets produced out. And then, of course, you can see a few others, mergers and acquisitions, due diligence between companies, second requests. There's a lot of potential use for eDiscovery. We use the term eDiscovery much more as a blanket statement, but the actual use cases are quite varied. ZyLAB really extends the eDiscovery solution for Microsoft. We consider ourselves a very tight partner with Microsoft. And as a result, we use the Microsoft stack for all of our software development. We are first and foremost at ZyLAB a software manufacturer. So our technology is developed in .NET, C#, and utilizes the entire server stack. So Microsoft Windows Server, Internet Information Server, Microsoft SQL Server. And as a result, we also utilize the Microsoft Azure cloud-based platform for the hosting of our solution. So in addition to an on-premises software solution, we also have a software as a service offering, and that is hosted here in the US in Microsoft Azure in a data center near or next to Office 365 content. This becomes very useful for our customers who are already transitioned to O365, as the content that they're collecting for eDiscovery is located in the same platform that the eDiscovery solution is being hosted in. But even for our on-premises customers who are still on Exchange or transitioning between Exchange and O365, our solution lets you collect data from on-premise and the cloud into one central location. So I mentioned earlier that even Gartner identified that Microsoft doesn't have a complete eDiscovery solution, and really where the major gaps are in review and production, the right side of the electronic data reference model. So once you've got the content already, you can do some searching of the content, but you have to be able to review the content, and you have to be able to produce the content out to the specs that are required. This is where we kind of extend, or I should say, we absolutely extend that solution. And I'm going to give you a little demonstration of that as we get towards the end of the webinar. So why is Azure a good platform for eDiscovery? In the past, most of our customers, quite honestly, have deployed their eDiscovery solution on premises. And so they felt all of their data was behind their firewall. And as a result, they wanted to keep their eDiscovery solution behind their firewall so that their data did not have to go anywhere else. The challenge with that is that the amount of data that has to be processed for cases is ever growing. As we get the cases progress, the size of the amount of data that's being requested in an average case is increasing. And so the data wave that's generating more and more content every day is also affecting eDiscovery, because during a meet and confer, opposing and the corporate counsel may decide to include more things now than they ever have in the past. Whereas they might have said in the past, media files, for example, audio and video files were out of scope simply because they were too hard to deal with in electronic discovery. That's not the case anymore. So now those things can be included, whereas non-English content might not have been easily included in eDiscovery. Now with machine translation, those things can be easily included. So the amount, just as a result of the newer technologies being available, more content is actually possible to be included in an eDiscovery case. And as a result, you need a solution that can grow or be elastic and process more content. We never quite know exactly how much data will be in a case. Most of our customers say we have a range of cases that are anywhere from X to Y. We never quite know what the workflow is going to look like for a case too. It changes. So while one case may have 5 reviewers, another case may need 20 or 30 reviewers. So you need a solution that is flexible enough that you can accommodate any type of eDiscovery case that might come along. The advantage to Microsoft Azure, as opposed to installing on-premises, where in the past it's been typically software installed on physical servers, now we have the ability to spin up additional infrastructure as needed. So you can see, for example, the image on screen right now represents a ZyLAB cluster, actually a couple of ZyLAB clusters. We use multiple processing servers to handle the heavy lifting of unpacking and deep processing of content. And we use those review servers and review databases to handle the user requests for searching and reviewing the content. Microsoft Azure, as an elastic type of environment, allows us to spin up additional processing servers as needed if a job is going to be come on board that's unusually large. Azure blobs allow us to store data in a more efficient and frankly more reasonably costed type of structure rather than doing a straight file system. And also Azure can be easily integrated as part of the on-premises network, effectively extending a customer's corporate environment without having to sacrifice any security. And also it's highly available. So you can geographically locate your Azure deployment in such a way that it is replicated to another locality. So should something happen to servers in your active region, your standby servers can take over. Now, of course, you can perform the same high availability with on-premise servers, but it's much more expensive and much more costly to maintain. So let's talk a little bit about how ZyLAB interacts with Office 365. There is the most manual process, of course, would be in an eDiscovery case, you need to collect your content from O365, and here we're talking specifically, primarily about email, as a PST. So you would go and perform a search in Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. You'd export those results to a PST, and some person would have to manually download the PST to the corporate network, where it would be then uploaded into ZyLAB. ZyLAB also, without a person involved, can do a direct collection of data from a user's mailbox. So you can instruct ZyLAB to go out and collect the messages from a particular customer or particular custodian or multiple custodians using the date range that's relevant to the case, and even if you want some keywords for the subject and body. In addition to that, you can also do do a hybrid of the two, which is go into a Security and Compliance Center first, do a search of all of your mailboxes for the keywords that are applicable to the case, filter it by date range, and then have the contents, the results of that search, be exported into a discovery mailbox, which is a unique mailbox in O365 for handling eDiscovery content. Then you can instruct ZyLAB to collect from that mailbox, do a direct collection. The advantage there is that you've already culled the data down in Office 365 before you even exported it, and you've maintained the chain of custody. So the search happens in the original content source. It stays in the original content source, and ZyLAB does the collection of that data programmatically. So the ZyLAB audit log will show that it picked up content from Office 365. No human had to feed it to it, and thereby reducing the potential for human error. And the same thing can be done using the advanced eDiscovery module in Office 365. So you can pre-select, meaning you run your search, you export to an eDiscovery. In this case, you export to an eDiscovery blob storage location. So if you have the E5 level of Office 365 and the advanced eDiscovery module, you have Azure Blob storage available to you. So you can use that for storage, and ZyLAB can still pick up from the Azure Blob storage location. And then finally, SharePoint content can also be collected by ZyLAB. In this case, we collect documents out of document libraries, and those can be pulled directly from sites you tell us to collect from in SharePoint, regardless of whether the SharePoint installation is on premises or in Office 365. All of that content can come down into your ZyLAB 1 platform, and we don't care if the ZyLAB 1 platform is located on premises or in Azure. Makes no difference to us. The other way to get content into ZyLAB easily is to utilize our self-service upload functionality. So as you can see in the screenshot here, we have, for every matter that is created in the environment, you have an upload screen where the individual user, if they have permission, can upload content, individual files, zips, TXT files, any archive format really, or any loose files, and select the custodian that's appropriate and the source that's appropriate for that content, and give the job a name and hit start upload. And what will happen is the content will be uploaded through the user's browser to the ZyLAB installation, again, regardless of whether it's on premises or in Azure Cloud. And it will be processed automatically and made available in the review environment. So the user will have real-time indication of the status, as you can see. It says scheduled there, it's the next job to run. And it'll say completed when it's finished, and the user can just go ahead and move on to the review environment, start looking at that data. In fact, one of the things that we're quite proud of is the fact that, unlike some other systems, you do not have to wait for the entire job to finish processing before you begin review. Within minutes of uploading content to our system, some of that content will start appearing in the review environment. So what are we actually doing when we collect the data? ZyLAB does, as I mentioned earlier, deep processing. This is significantly different and a diversion from what Microsoft really can do with your data. Microsoft, when you export content from Office 365, will say that here are your email messages. There are attachments to a lot of them. It can read some formats, some very basic formats. Of course, Microsoft Office files, PDFs, but there's a lot of formats that are not handled natively. And as a result, you'll get a message when you export your content saying, here, there's a list of files that are unindexed, meaning we have no idea if these files are applicable to your search, but they're part of the email messages that you asked for. So we're going to hand you them anyway. Well, that's not an issue in ZyLAB. So we support over 700 file formats natively, which means we can open up those files, regardless of their type. We can extract the full text content. We can extract the metadata, and then we can process that and make it available for review for you. We deal with every type of compound and compressed file format. I mentioned PST and zip, but we can also handle RAR and TAR and MBOX and LO1 in-case files. So regardless of what you upload into our system in whatever format it originally came from, we're going to unpack it and make it available for you. We also have to deal with the fact that a lot of the content that is uploaded is not necessarily natively readable. If you're talking about PDFs or if you're talking about images that might be embedded inside of other objects, those have to be extracted, and then they have to be OCR'd to ensure that any text that might appear in that document becomes part of the search index, and as a result, can be found when you run your search. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, we handle audio files. We have support for searching audio and video files for spoken words, and we do that phonetically. I'll show you a screenshot of that in a second. Actually, here's this kind of gets to the level of processing we talked about with an individual email message. So you can see the message was the original document, but then attached to that email message were additional files, an Excel file, a Word document, a zip. Inside the zip, there was a PDF. Embedded in the Word document was an image. There was also another image inside the zip. And all of these images in the PDF, they're not natively searchable. I need to then OCR them first. So ZyLAB is capable of actually performing these actions. And it doesn't matter how deep the nesting goes. So if that zip had another zip inside of it and had another zip inside of it, that's not going to matter. We've tested our software to 1,000 levels deep. There's no theoretical limit for it, but we've tested as far as 1,000 levels deep in terms of nested archives. And we've been able to make sure that all of the data inside is extracted properly. I started to touch on this audio search functionality. This typically gets quite a wow from customers when we demonstrate it. But using the same search interface that you utilize for text documents and just changing one of the options from text to audio, you can actually perform a phrase search for audio content or video content that has been indexed into a particular matter in ZyLAB. What that means is, hey, if you've got hours and hours of call center data, voicemail messages, body cam videos, those can be indexed phonetically, and then you can run searches against them to see if you've got hits. This is vastly different than having to listen to hours or hundreds of hours of audio looking for keywords, which humans are going to make errors if they're going to do that, because at some point you simply get, it's hard to stay focused when you're listening to content that long looking for phrases. We don't do a speech to text translation and then search the text. In this case, we actually create a phonetic index of the content, which is considered to be far more accurate. And then you can run a search against that phonetic index. What you can see on the screen there are little red bars that indicate the probability of a hit on the search the phrase that you searched for, and you can control the probability of those hits as well in your search. ZyLAB is often used for early case assessment. Even some of our corporate customers who don't do the review in-house, they use their ZyLAB software to collect up the data so that it's in one location, to cull the data down, to do some early case assessment on it, identify what is junk, and then provide the rest of the content to their outside counsel for doc review. That's perfectly fine. You don't necessarily have to use ZyLAB to do review, but it is, I do think, a very robust review platform. But as an ECA tool, it's quite good as well. We go through the effort of doing email threading for you. So all the email messages that come in, the headers are analyzed, and we are able to stitch them back together in a view so that you can see a conversation. And in fact, you can see where messages are missing from a conversation. So if I sent a message to Anna Laura and she sent it on to someone else, and I only collected my content and her content, I would not necessarily know that. I might be missing some of the messages in the conversation, and our software can identify that. We of course have the ability to dedupe content using hashing. We hash documents and compare those hash values to identify exact duplicates. We also use our own patented algorithms for near duplicate analysis. So telling you that a document is 85% similar to one that you already have in the system, and perhaps you want to go take a look at it. We have the ability to enhance the metadata associated with the document by looking for entities, people, places, organizations, currency that might appear within the document, and extract those information at the part of speech level and put that information into the metadata of the document. Auto classification, so the ability we can pre-tag content before a human reviewer even looks at it. looking for keywords or patterns. So for example, if you're looking for all documents that have a long list of keywords and you want them to be pre-tagged as potentially relevant, the system can do that automatically before a human goes in and takes a look. If you want the system to identify documents that have social security numbers or credit card numbers or the names of diseases because these are potentially sensitive or potentially potential health information issues, you can have the system find those patterns using regular expression and tag documents for you. And also, and I'll talk about this right at the end, we have some very sophisticated artificial intelligence tools to allow you to cluster topics together, do topic modeling, and technology-assisted review. This is an example of what the document screen, the document review screen looks like in the ZyLAB platform. It is organized in such a way that you see the document in the center, and the document has been imaged. So regardless of what the file format of that document is, the user just needs a browser. Doesn't matter what browser it is, but they're going to be looking at an image representation of the document. So they, of course, if they have the permissions, can download the native or a PDF. But the image on screen allows us to do search hit highlighting. You can see the yellow boxes; those are search hits. You can also do persistent highlighting in green, or you could search within the document in pink and have your searches come up. But you can see in the upper left the conversation box where we show the threaded email conversation. In fact, you can also see an unknown message indicator there. You can see the document family analysis where it shows you the message that you're on and the attachments that were included. So in this case, you can see there was a zip file, but we don't really care about the zip. You care about what's inside the zip. So we show you that there was a couple of documents there, and you can jump to those. We show you the metadata properties of the document you're looking at, and you can filter those. Of course, you have a tagging palette on the right, which is completely customizable. And you have the ability to do annotations and redactions of the document right on screen. So one of the unique things about ZyLAB is not only do we allow for manual redactions, but we also allow for automatic redactions. The responsive design, so we have recently redesigned our UI, our user interface, and we moved to HTML5, which gives us a lot more flexibility, and it also increases the speed and performance of the user interface. Responses to searches are immediate. The design of the screen changes based on the size of the monitor you're looking at. So if you have a larger monitor on your desk or multiple monitors, you can take advantage of that. If you're reviewing content on an iPad or another tablet device, you can use that as well. As I mentioned, we are now browser agnostic. So whatever desktop browser you prefer, you can utilize for our software. There are no plugins required, and you can just jump in from wherever you are to your matter. This is an example of the search results screen. You can see that we can provide the data to you, the names of the files, any column that you'd like to view, whether it's metadata field or a tag or the review status. You could show. You can reorder them, drag and drop them. You can even save views. So if you have a particular view of columns that you like, you can save that and reuse it. Jump to it anytime you want. You can share it with other reviewers. Same with queries. We support a number of different query types as a company. That is first and foremost what we were based on. When ZyLAB started 34 years ago now, we started as a search company, and we have built our name and our history on the technology that we have. We don't utilize someone else's search engine or indexing. We use our own proprietary technology. So we have a very robust indexing engine and search function that utilizes keywords, wildcards, Boolean searches and or not statements, proximity searches, so within 10 words of or precedes 10 words, quorum searching, the ability to say, hey, give me any documents that have 2 or more of the following 50 keywords. So you can look for things that would appear more than once, but not necessarily have a page worth of Boolean or statements. I mentioned audio searching. We also have number range searching, which is fairly unique to ZyLAB, in that you can search for the number 15,000 in any eDiscovery system. It's going to find it if it appears in one of your documents, because the number 15,000 is tokenized as text. However, if you're looking for a value between 15,000 and 16,000, that is much harder to do because, as I said, everything is tokenized as text. Whereas ZyLAB actually, when it comes across a number in a document, it actually tokenizes that number as a value. And so that allows us to do range searching, greater than, less than searching. Really useful in forensic accounting or anytime you're dealing with a large number of dollar amounts in a case. I touched on auto redaction functionality. This is another one where people are like, I spend hundreds of hours manually redacting content within matters. You're telling me you could do that automatically? Yes. Yeah, so you can utilize keywords, again, like or person's name or email address, but you can also use patterns. So if I'm looking for all social security numbers, all credit card numbers, or all phone numbers, or driver's license numbers, or passport numbers, I can set up rules in the system right through the user interface to say, hey, if this pattern is found, go ahead and auto redact that, and here's the redaction code to utilize. So you can utilize a code set that you populate. The system is very flexible in that respect, and this can save hundreds of hours of work time for reviewers. You can see a quote there from one of our customers and how the automated redaction functionality has really allowed them to move at a much faster pace. And of course, most recently in the ZyLAB platform, we've started to bring artificial intelligence into the eDiscovery workspace. We're not the newest or I should say, we were not the first to bring artificial intelligence to eDiscovery. In fact, we were one of the later players, and that's a good thing, we feel, because we made a lot of decisions about the data science that we chose that some of our other competitors did not. They picked some older technologies to use for their underlying data science, and we've used more accepted algorithms, more efficient algorithms to do our predictive coding. That is a whole nother presentation, so I'm not going to get into a great deal about TAR today. Suffice it to say that we have a very robust system for predictive coding of content, as well as for our topic modeling feature, which allows you to cluster topics together. You can see here an example of the topic modeling wheel. This is when you run, once you run this against a data set, it will classify every document for you, assign a value to it, and then group topics together in a wheel like this that you can then use as a basis for predictive coding if you'd like. So you can create issues, predictive coding or assisted review issues right from the topic wheel. You can also just jump to those documents in legal review representing particular topics that you're interested in. So this is a great way for investigators to look at a new data set that they've been given and figure out where to begin their searching. If you're starting a new matter and you've been given a bunch of data and you don't know where to begin your searches, creating a topic wheel like this where you cluster the important topics together is a great jumping off point. With that, I'd like to do a very short demonstration of the software, just so you can see some of the things I've talked about. And we'll see if anyone has uploaded any content in there. So let's just switch over to the live environment. All right, so here we are in ZyLAB 1. I'm actually going to back up a second just to show you the select matter screen. So when you log into the application, you're presented with a list of matters. The list of matters is based on your permissions. So you can set up the system where certain users have access to some matters, but not all. This works really well if you're using the system for multiple use cases. If you have an internal investigation department, you might want to allow HR access to certain matters that legal doesn't have access to, or vice versa. In municipalities, in city and state municipalities, we often have the FOIA officer who has access to certain matters, whereas the police department also has to do public records requests, but have access to different matters. It's the same interface, just controlling the permissions for you. So I can go, let's go take a look at some existing data here in our data set. When I hit browse, brought to our facet navigation screen. You saw a screenshot of this in the presentation. But this is a visual way to look at your data set. These facets themselves are customizable. They are based on metadata fields in the particular matter. So you can change which facets you want to see depending on what's important to that case. They allow you to filter content. So I can run a search here, Enron within 10, Ablay, and stock asterisk. And I hit search. And you can see that my data set has now been filtered down. The facets show me the fewer documents that now respond to my search. I started with 50,000 documents in this matter. Now, if I wanted to filter even further, I could say, let's use this search phrase, and I only want to see John Arnold's documents. So if I click on John Arnold as a custodian, I've now added him up here. You can see our breadcrumb trail. I've added him as a filter, and now my result set is smaller. I only have 35 documents. And if I wanted to get even more deep to that, I can actually come down here and say, let's see if, see here, we have some closed facets at the bottom. We'll open them up. And I can look at, oh, well, some of these documents have already been tagged with technical issue. So we can take a look at these 8 documents right here and switch to that. And at any point, I can switch to my document list. I can switch between facets and document list and see the 8 documents now that we're looking at. So these are the 8 documents that belong to John Arnold that have been tagged technical issue. In fact, I can't see the technical issue column right here. So let's go ahead and add that. I want to see what that looks like. So we'll add that column, and now you can see the technical issue column. Oh, there's a viewing problem apparently. So maybe someone is having a challenge with some of these documents, and they've asked us to take a look at it. This gives you a very quick way to get at the data. I can also use saved searches. So if I clear out my search entirely and clear out the custodian filter, just go back to my all documents, I can actually utilize my saved search functionality here. So I can go back to searches that I've used previously. For example, here I have a search that shows me all social security numbers that might appear in this data set. And so now when I click on that, I can see that I've got 23 documents where a social security number has appeared. And if I didn't want to type that out, I also have query macros that allow me to do things like a hashtag SSN hashtag, where I can type that out and have the same result. So let's take a look at one of those documents. So let's see, this email message apparently has a bunch of documents, and some of them attached have Social Security. So you can see we're in the doc review screen, as I showed you before. We'll jump down and look at this particular document right here. This is a personal financial and credit statement. And if I want to navigate to my search hit, which in this case was a Social Security number, I click here and it navigates me down. And I can see, in fact, there is an SSN that's been auto-redacted. So if I click on that, I can look over here into the redactions panel and see an auto-redaction. This tells me when the auto-redaction engine kicked in and redact that content for me. You can see the tags that are applied to the document. I can change those tags based on what I have access to. And that's kind of a very quick look around the interface. Let's take a look and see if any of the content that you as attendees have made it in yet. So I have this matter that I created, Office 365 webinar demo, and we'll go browse that. And yes, it looks like there are some documents that were submitted. So let's go ahead and just switch to the document list, and so we can see somebody sent a test in. Robert Mars, thank you, from Amsterdam, sent in this test message. So you can see the system is set up to quickly grab messages. I sent in a test with an attachment, so I wanted to show you that. Let's do a search for smoking gun. And we'll switch over to that. Nope, there's the file, and there's an attachment. Let's see what the attachment says. The attachment is an image of a smoking gun. Look at that. So I can reduce the size of that image so you can see it. But notice, importantly, that the yellow hit highlighting of smoking gun appears in all 4 directions. So not only was ZyLAB able to image this, OCR this document, which is clearly an image to begin with, but we OCR'd it in 4 directions so that we did not miss any text on any axis within the document. That's a pretty unique functionality right there, and it really kind of gives you an example of ZyLAB's commitment to maximum recall of content. So with that, I see we are at the 45 mark, and this is a 45-minute webinar. So I want to go ahead and thank everyone for attending today. We have a lot of other ZyLAB webinars that are available. Please look at zylab.com and the marketing calendar. It will show you future upcoming webinars that you can register for. We have other topics, including detailed search analysis, technology-assisted review. So I look forward to seeing many of you at future webinars. Thank you again for your attention today, and have a good day.